Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Hi guys. Welcome to class. I'm just sending out a quick announcement on my Discord community that class has started. It should be an interesting class today. I have some nice pieces of art lined up for us to take a look at. Pop out chat. How is everybody doing? Hello, Tushar. Hello, everyone. I will be taking a look at this piece, which I would like to place side by side with its reference. Okay, let me just merge down. And hi Rohith, how are you? Hi Filippo, welcome. Welcome guys. And I'll be taking a look at this piece as well. I'm actually not entirely sure if I want to keep them that close to each other. It might throw off our, independence of the reference while working. Hi Sakasma, how are you? How is everybody doing today? I'm just waiting for everybody to hop in. And I'm not deleting streams anymore, so I'm gonna leave the stream as it is in its raw state on the YouTube channel. So if you guys hear weird things in the background, I can't edit them out anymore. Apparently YouTube punishes videos or channels that delete their content, and sometimes they just upload my video even though I don't want them to upload the live stream. They upload it anyway, and so I used to delete them and edit them and re-upload them, adjust the volume. But now I'm gonna experiment something with this new channel. I do have two channels. This isn't the only channel I have, so if you're new here, who am I? What am I doing? I'm a professional artist and I critique art submitted to my subreddit for free for everyone to watch for free. And so you get your art critiqued for free, and this is available for everyone, and you can submit your art for critique two ways. You can go to istabrack.com and click on the subreddit icon here. That'll take you to my subreddit where everyone submits their work to be critiqued by me and others. Or you can click on the Discord icon right here. That'll take you to my Discord community where there is a critique channel where I selected both pieces to critique today on the free Discord, the public Discord. There are two different Discords. One is just for my patrons. I assign homework and they do the homework. There's deadlines and customized assignments for the group, as well as lots of different varieties of assignments. So we do sculpting, we do form studies, we do finished pieces, master studies, and everyone gets a critique at the end of the month. It's always so exciting seeing the range of skill in my Patreon. And I, in general, throughout where I'm teaching, no matter what I'm doing, private tutoring, Patreon, public tutoring, public lectures as I'm doing right now, there's no skill limit and there's no skill minimum. I teach everyone. Whoever learns something, learns something. So that's usually how I do it. I just offer my knowledge there for everyone to use as they need. Except for people trying to change my content into something that shouldn't. It's for students, okay? Let's make that clear. All right, and then what other announcement do I have? So I have a store, and on the store I have a masterclass, and it's on sale at 50% off. It's a portraiture masterclass, and you learn everything you need to know about painting a portrait digitally. I use Photoshop, but these apply to all different kinds of painting platforms. And I teach you as if you've never picked up a paintbrush before. So I don't skip lessons. I don't skim over lessons. If you're a list lover, I have a whole list of the entire lesson turned into a list of tasks. I know that some of you guys really love your lists. I love my lists, and that's why I created it to go along with it. And around the end of summer, I'll be uploading mini classes on my Gumroad, classes that are very dedicated to the subject that, they're basics, but they're very dedicated to that basic. So fundamental by fundamental, what is lighting, what is radial shading, how to paint a sphere, how to paint a cube, the value of a cylinder. Many little lessons distributed throughout my Gumroad store. And there are 2 lessons on my Gumroad store to be purchased right now, and both are on sale. And that's it. And there's Portrait Studio. You guys saw me use it last class. Everything is on sale on my store at the moment. And so let's get started. Let's get started with today's class. What am I after today? What's the point of today? So I wanted to talk about this illustration, this environment illustration here. And I wanted to talk about fundamentally what's going on. I know that you had a colored piece. So this artist had a colored version posted on their, alongside this on the same wall on the subreddit. I'm also going to talk about this one in a little bit as well. So my issues with it is that you're not picking up some of the most important form cues that there are in an environment. Okay. Yay, Kyle, you made it. So what are these form cues? What are these environmental form cues? So there's perspective. Perspective and form go hand in hand when it comes to environments. What is it really? So, I mean, you have, everything looks flat, but there's something a little bit off about the way you distributed values along different surface areas. So everything can be a landscape. Anything can be a landscape. You know the human face? You know how it's the nose and a mouth and a chin, and you've got the eyes and the eye socket, right? What kind of eye socket is that? And the nose, right? So I'm just trying to create like slight rotation in the head. So this can be a landscape if you zoom in just close enough. If you're this small and you have a camera, you're like this small, and you have a camera, this can be treated as a landscape. For instance, if you're standing on the forehead and looking down, this is exactly what we're looking at here. It's exactly the same concept. Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? So what I'm talking about when I say different surface areas were not necessarily understood, I mean to say that you drew a mountain before understanding a pyramid. So what does that mean? It means you put the cart before the horse. You try to do a surgery before you finished med school. I can go on. So you first have to learn how to render a pyramid. And not just a pyramid, a polygonal maybe pyramid shape, where everything reaches a point at the top. A pyramid with challenges, you know, a challenging pyramid. And then eventually you can start creating mountain ranges, right? So each and every single one of these pyramids has a surface area change. So this one we can confidently say has 4 upward surface areas, you know, ignoring the one that's actually attached to the bottom. We have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a square pyramid. You can make a triangular pyramid as well. And this one has 3 main sides or surface areas, 1, 2, and the one in the back. So when we look at this pyramid here, we can see a surface area change here, a surface area change here. The direction has changed. So I really encourage you guys to watch the stream that came before this one. And I know that's hard to figure out when it comes to YouTube video history and all of that. What if you watch this a year from now? Like, what video does she mean? The one that came right before this one, I believe it was about forms. If you can't find it, just do a video history search, video search history, I don't know the order of those words, forms, and that'll show you the video I mean. So every single one of these surfaces has a perpendicular line, perpendicular from the surface it's on, coming out of it. And the light itself emanates a bunch of arrows. And whenever you have two arrows pointing at each other, imagine the light as an eyeball, and the surface area is also having an eyeball. Can they see each other? Are they locking eyes? Are they gazing at each other? So this locked direction when they're both looking at each other means that this is the area, one of the areas, that has the most brightness. So that's a good rule of thumb. Think about it like that. That's literally what's happening in the light. The area that's exposed to the light can bounce the light, therefore deliver the light to your eyeballs so that you can see everything. Not related to the eyeballs I was talking about over here, your eyeballs. So when we take these complex surfaces and add more and more conditions, and eventually we have like a super pyramid with multiple different sides. We don't just have 3 or 4 sides. We have like 500 different potential if we polymerized it or something. If we made it into a polygon, polygonized it, we could probably like lower the poly in the model in the 3D modeling program. We could probably find like in an actual pyramid, maybe like 100 surface areas or areas of change. This one is a pretty simple one, but when it comes to these mountains back here, lots and lots of surface areas. So you may be trying to oversimplify it stylistically, but I feel like stylization is something you have to graduate into. Like let's say I had an art academy and I had a final exam for a 4-year program and I'm giving actual degrees. The thesis of those bachelor and master degrees in Estabrook University would be style. That would be the thesis that you have. What's your style? If you don't want a style, then you just do a thesis on unstylized, representational form stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Style is something that is your thesis. That's your thesis in graduate school. Like that's the actual thing that you're studying to achieve. So if you haven't even done Form Studies 101, first semester class, entry level form studies, and understood the ins and outs of a form study, you have no business writing a thesis about pyramids. And to paint something stylistically is to write a thesis about pyramids. Do you guys understand the example I'm making? So you need to go back and study your pyramids. You study the basic forms so that you can pick up on these slight changes. Why are these slight changes so important? Because they're directional changes. Anytime a direction is changed on a surface area, the value is changed. The arrow is no longer perfectly gazing at the light. And so you never get that perfect value all the way around. The way you rendered yours, we have almost the exact same value all the way around, even though the edge is begging us to change the value. Look at these surface area changes indicated by this edge. That means that there's something going up and down, changing surface area, resulting in the value change. Okay, so right here, how do we apply that over here? How do we send that over here? Well, let's also talk about the grain. Everything has a grain. I mean, everything should have a grain. You really shouldn't be painting as if you're airbrushing everything. But this grain, right, you can see the grain. All the brushes are mostly traveling vertically. It's just the nature of the way this rock formation was formed over the years. Things slid down towards gravity along a slope, creating a grain. And so that should be the direction your brush moves in. That should be the direction your brush is behaving in. So right here on this study, I'm seeing things that I already want to change. And I'll change them now once I lasso the thing. Okay, and all right, and then select inverse. Let me just go ahead and all that. So what I want to do is start applying brush strokes that reflect that same surface area change. And in order to see those, you really have to zoom out. So we see a surface area change in two main areas. This drop here and these peaks all have different values, and this far away peak has an extreme drop in the value. And I think that's what you're missing. And that's the charm of what we're looking at. That's what we want to see as the viewer. We want to see the charm of a mountainside. And I think it has a lot to do with the grain, the texture, the odd shape. I think people just love noticing and pointing that out. Look at the shape of that mountain. Look at the shape of that mountain. Look at how it does that cool little peak. That's the charm of natural scenes, is the unusual shapes they take. Right? And I'm creating these brush strokes with the effort of sloping my brush strokes in the same direction. I'm not doing any brush strokes like this because that's how you break the physics. That's how you start moving against the grain and representing a different surface area texture. Your brush stroke should always slope towards gravity because that's where the rocks have moved. Right? And those are the main things that are missing in your piece. That's really what the big deal is. And that's what a professional artist would catch because they have form study vision. Can anyone try to describe what I mean by form study vision? What is form study vision for anyone who's maybe listening to this and is curious? Can anyone describe what form study vision means? So I'm going to create that same separation that you have here. Select inverse. All right, I'm trying to just create that separate shape in those surfaces, and then select inverse, and try to create that continuity in the slope. I might be able to do that with my brush stroke. That's where you break it down into spheres, not just spheres. Seeing the form for what it is, how light hits it, and not what you expect it to be. Exactly. You don't see the object. When you're looking at, let's say, an action figure, you don't see just the action figure. An artist sees the shapes that make that action figure. They see the fundamental shapes in there. So that's something you have to ask yourself. Have I reached that level yet? Am I seeing the shapes? To see the shapes is to see the light. Write that back to me. So understanding the behavior of light, as you can see from those examples I've given you and last class, and the arrows that are parallel, and the perpendicular line coming out of every surface, you can see the shape. Understanding the shape is understanding the light. Like, you see how important those two are for each other. If there was no shape ever, and it was just an empty room across the cosmos, and it was just a bunch of light shining on it, we wouldn't know that there was light. You need light to create. I mean, maybe we would. You need light to create itself. And you need light to create shapes. You need light for everything. And in order to understand the light, you need to weaken the light a little bit. It can't just be a blaring light. You need to make it weaker. And then you need to put a shape in there. And then you really have stuff's really starting to happen now, because the shape is there to prevent the light from moving, revealing itself and revealing the light simultaneously. And the light being so weak, it's not so strong that it's washing everything out. And then the light being continuous in its rays and those vectors that it sends out allows for the consistency of light reaching our eyes and creating the image. So that's all this is. Understanding shapes as an artist is understanding light. And so right now I'm creating these continuous patterns. My brush strokes are all downward, sloping downward with gravity. So there's a little bit of geology there you have to understand. I'm letting my textured brush stroke also sneak in a little bit. It's like my number 2, but it's got a bit more texture, a little bit unruly at times. But I love it. I love the texture it creates. All those paintings of mine that you see that have that strong texture, it's in all of my brushes. And it creates this, not so sterile look to the brush strokes while we're blocking. You can see slight sloping here. There's a slope at the top. And so we can start interrupting at the very peak of the pyramid. We can start adding some larger brush strokes, enlarging them the closer we get to the camera, because the camera now can see these shrubbery as much larger. instead of a smaller brush stroke. All right, and I'm letting my brush that is very crazy throw in a couple of those shrubbed edges along the valley. And then now I'm going to bring in the purest black, which isn't necessarily what's happening in the scene, but I'm allowing the texture brush to bring in some of that black just so we can have some texture that is also on the darker side to create that variation. And there are some things that happen in a painting that don't necessarily happen in a reference. Like atmospheric perspective can really be exaggerated in your painting and not necessarily that present. That present in the reference. If I do use soft brush, I'll use it like collectively. I'll use it as a film. I don't try to actually place the soft brush on anything it has no business representing. Like this is a rocky surface. A soft brush may be possibly used for some of the shrubbery, but it's not recommended at all because its imprint or its silhouette is too soft for something this, this kind of terrain, this kind of rough terrain. Right at the peaks, those surface area changes from earlier, I'm just going to add that highlighter. And that's how you just continue, that's how you turn it into your version, your painting, without losing all of those essential geological indications, like of environmental indications, the gravity, the shape language, the edges, the overlapping, all of that stuff. Another thing you missed is sometimes when I look at mountains, I almost see the tectonic plates that created them. I see this like animation in my mind. So you see this shape right here, and you see this shape right here. If we were to dissect this right in half, or bisect it right in half, you can see that the angle of this surface and the angle of this surface are not parallel. And we don't want them to be parallel. We want them to intersect at a point. So this one and this one, you can literally select this part of the mountain and shift it over. Like shift it to tilt a little bit. So it's doing something else, almost like you're seeing the tectonic collision between those two. If you've ever seen an animation of that or watch one of those disaster movies, you can see how like tectonic plates like collide and they create this really cool, like crystallized almost shape once they hit each other. And so that's what I'm trying to show you here, is that there's this really obvious asymmetry between them. And you've kind of made them a little too symmetrical. And then I'm just going to use the brush to the lasso, to just break up some of this perfect line that you have here. Always continuing that slope, trying to encourage the presence of that slope. Just here. So just adding those textures, but also continuing the slope, continuing the emotion of the slope. Okay. And you can see now it's getting closer and closer to something more realistic. So some artists have inner like directives learned from portraiture. These directives basically say, hey, the eye doesn't look great, but in a couple hours it should come together if you continue doing this focal point and focus on that. Environments are not one-to-one with the portrait process. So when you paint portraits, eventually it'll look nice. Even the stylized ones that are not necessarily entertaining all rules of fundamentals and realism, eventually it'll look nice because it's a face. A face is a face. It's interesting to look at, be it stylized or not. environments are not that forgiving because there isn't a focal point or a character there to save us from our mistakes. There's only so many rules you can break before it starts looking like a pile of mashed potatoes. You need it to look like a mountain. And so these are the requirements I'm talking about. And these are the elements that make it look like one. So I'm reaching the detail stage where I am using a harder brush, trying to create those really sharp slopes, those unforgiving surfaces, jumping around between different brush strokes for different detail levels. Maybe going back to my crazy brush. Actually, sometimes I use color dodge on that brush. And let me see if I can lasso better now. Do you see how the lasso is more successful this time around because I created contrast between the mountain and its surroundings? Kind of have a bad lasso there, my bad. Oopsie, select inverse. No, select inverse. Okay. So dodge tool, actually, I'll go back to brush, and I'll use that brush on dodge because it'll give me like this texture at the very peak of the mountain. And it'll let me create that overlap. Right here, we have this really cool mountain overlap. Right here, this section of the mountain is starting to go in front of itself. So you can just do that exact thing, but it goes right back to being along the same original path it was traveling on. Just there. So those cool transitional changes are again what we're looking for. Those are the things that make the mountain feel like a mountain. Make it feel realistic. Remember, realism isn't just about fine detail and photorealism. Photorealism is a very unrealistic goal for a lot of artists, especially professionals who just want to get their work done. Realism can also be in the behavior. It can be a very short amount of brushstrokes. It doesn't have to take too long. Realism can happen in a matter of minutes. But the reason it's realism is because it was like this efficient execution of the most essential characteristics of that texture. Okay, and so just letting some brush strokes collide a little bit. Sometimes I bring in a smudge brush that is a little bit more unruly to try to create a kind of blur effect, especially where we have areas of shrubbery, like this one here. Let me decrease the strength of my smudge. This is one of my most crazy smudge brushes because it leaves it takes no prisoners. It will create this really cool overlapped lens look while blurring, but it won't, you know, take all the detail away. There's like a lacy effect, and I usually use it where I know I need some kind of texture that I don't really want to try to pull off at the moment one-to-one, but it creates this really, really cool texture right away. The next thing I'm going to do is this bounce light. So there's a lot of ambient light jumping around in the scene. And so sometimes a quick little brush stroke like that, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen Bob Ross do this. He just gets like some kind of mix of two colors, the sky color and the earth color that he used on the spot, and uses his palette knife on a side and a bit of a dry, or maybe a dry brush or a fan brush. And he uses that to create this rocky effect while also simultaneously creating the bounce light or the ambient light that's revealed. Why is this section visible? It's not facing the light. The arrows do not look at the light. They're visible because the ambient light all around is still bouncing around, revealing some detail. And we usually use the sky color to get us started to achieve that. And then I am tempted to throw in a couple more of those textured brush strokes moving upward to create the silhouette of that shrubbery, followed by a quick smudge of the smudge brush. There are a lot of other really cool tricks you can pull off, maybe darkening the edges. This is something that I would just sit here meditating on. A lot of my environment sketches and drawings are in my tablet, And they're usually just things I ruminate on, just messing around with different levels of exposure, different levels of contrast, doing large brushstrokes like this and seeing where I end up. But for the majority of the initial start or process of the environment, I'm trying to capture those really, really fundamental characteristics of an environment that carry the read. That required level of like geological awareness, that texture, brush direction, brush grain, light and form, all of the physics involved in this. We also have a bit of a path, so you could make sure your brush strokes are always following that path and creating that same effect. And then we have a couple of edges here and there. I'll select like the most relevant value nearby to create the edge of that so it doesn't look too lacy. And when I zoom out, I can catch a lot more as well. So I can throw in just like a big brush stroke just there and just delete away. It's okay, she can hang out on the computer. I'm just talking to Eva. And I'm just trying to capture that edge there. And deleting and feathering away at it until I like the amount of contrast I've added in. And that's really all of it. That's really all that it takes. Be very, very careful with how you look at environments. It's not quite like portraits. It's not quite the same approach because there's some awareness required on your part of how environments work, what they need in order to feel like that. And then that's where texture studies come in. Texture studies are very, very critical in your development because they teach you how to capture that texture in a very efficient way. The more textures you do, the better you get at representing them in a shorter amount of time. And so you can see how these mountain ranges and these bounce light areas create almost like a curved pattern. So one section is very sharp and completely fell off, and one section is curved. Could be the wind direction, could be erosion, could be all kinds of really cool geological effects. But we have curves on one side and sharp lines on the other side. And that would be where your brushstroke is moving as well, how your brushstroke is moving. You want to leave behind, even if you push away most of these brushstrokes back into obscurity, you still want to leave behind a grain of that general mountain behavior, of that surface area. Okay. And I'm just trying to capture that lens effect down here, the framing that may have been added after the fact, but it's still good for the painting. Just there. So if we look at the before, obviously there's a bit more realism now. But if you look at the before, the direction you were moving in feels very, very abstract or simplified, minimalist. It doesn't feel like we are looking at a piece inspired by that photo. Obviously, I pushed it towards more of a representation, but you can choose where you want to stop. You can completely omit most of the shadow texture. Usually that's what minimalist artists do. They select one level of the realism to keep. And you know, one part of it. You can exaggerate the contrast in the stylized version. You can completely bring in more simplified tones for one type of arrow or one type of surface area. You don't have to preserve it completely as it is in the reference. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do and still manage to work from a reference, still manage to bring over some detail. Okay? And then moving on to this one. So for this one, there's a lot of issues. I think there's a perspective issue. I know you're trying to possibly do some foreshortening here, but there's not enough body overlap to create the foreshortening. So let me show you what I mean. One second. I'm just retrieving. My desktop is a complete mess. Utter mess. There it is. One second. So you would have more of an overlap in the body parts if it was foreshortening. I mean, you're drawing like she's facing the camera, so nothing is really overlapping. We should see more of the behind. We should see less of the front. We should see more of the top of the thigh. We should see less of the shins and more of the feet, or the top of the feet. This one is okay, I guess. This one was very straightforward. We should see more of the chest in front of the body. Okay, we should see wider shoulder line, and we should see less of the neck, more of the head in front of the shoulder line. Shoulder line, head. The head is in front of it. That's foreshortening. So what you did was you tried to make us see this in a head-on way while still enlarging her head. So all it looked like was a character that looks like this. It just looked like a bobblehead. Do you see what I'm saying? Without foreshortening, which is overlap, it's not possible. What is foreshortening? What's the secret? What's the thing that'll get us to look like foreshortening? Again, this is what you did. All right, so the necklace, the pearls are all on top of each other instead of, perfectly stacked instead of in front of each other. This is called stacking. All right, this is one of the most important fundamentals I cover in private tutoring, in public classes, in Patreon. Everything leads back to this. This is what it's all about. Being able to rotate and overlap shapes in your mind, not just rotate the cube along the kebab stick, like the piece of cheese on the toothpick, but also rotate the piece of cheese so there's another piece of cheese under it and another piece of cheese under that. Then you really can draw. Then you're drawing. Then you're like, you're building. That's it. It's done. You've learned how to draw. So that's the issue, is that there's no real overlap in any of your foreshortening, and so you don't have stacking. You don't have any kind of stacking. Let me show you what I mean. All right, so let me load the figure. Let me load the female. Okay, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. All right, so this is where we are, right? I'm going to increase the field of view. And then I'm going to rotate her, all right? Watch what happens to her thighs, to her leg. And you know what? I'm going to stick this one leg out just to mimic what you're doing. Remember, this is Portrait Studio and it's currently on sale. So if you guys want it, now's the time to get it for the summer. I do have a summer sale at 50% off. It's like one of the lowest in the year. Look at what's happening. Actually, you know what? I will change the perspective instead of the camera so the light doesn't change. Okay. Look at that. The breasts are in front of the torso. The torso is in front of the hips. They're overlapped. This is the stacking I'm talking about. Shape 1, shape 2, shape 3, and then this shape is in front of this shape, all stacked. Stacked. We see the curve and everything get revealed. You're not doing this. You're not doing this key feature. You're not doing this. You're doing it so that we can still see the shoulder line. But you've enlarged the head. You've just made the head really big. All right, that's all it feels like right now. You have not done what you're supposed to do in the foreshortening, which is actually stack. Automatically, when you foreshorten, especially if you increase the field of view, the head will just look really big. Right? Especially if you really, really push the foreshortening. All right. Or you can just get Portrait Studio and model your reference and And there you go. You have all the referencing you need, and you can even trace it since it's yours. I'm not against tracing. What I'm against is someone saying they didn't trace. That's when it gets, a little annoying. But as long as you're not as long as you're not using AI at any level of your, dude, trace as much as you want. It's still 100% human made. All right. So you can see now that we look back at this, there's no foreshortening. There's foreshortening without stacking, but it's not foreshortening anymore. Stacking and foreshortening are hand in hand. They're married. They're married for life. They've been married for 1,000 years. Okay. And you just increase the head size without foreshortening the shoulders. So it just looks like a character with a really, really big head. You see what I'm saying? Next issue is the environment. If you're going for a league splash, one of the most important elements of pulling off a league splash is the silhouette. Pick any league splash you want. They all are silhouetted because it reads well from a distance. It's like good photography. And so most of the recreations are, inspired by a league splash, trying to create a splash, those kinds of descriptions in the subreddit automatically, well, the first thing I look for is, did they have their silhouette? That's the qualifier to make it look like a splash. That's it right there. And if you don't have it, you're not going to create that same environment. Not all of them have it 100% of the time, but I would safely say 90% of all of the newer league splashes have the silhouette. All right, so all I'm doing is just showing you the power of that silhouette, like what effect it has. It's crazy. All right, and then don't know what's happening here. Don't know what lasso is doing. And just gonna try to capture this general silhouette. So what you did is you inversed the silhouette. You put the darkness on the bottom, which is believable. I mean, it's a sensical solution, but it's not an Illustrator decision. What you need to do is use your, don't know what's happening. All right, there we go. Use your instinct, a photographer's instinct, to reveal the character from the background. Look at that silhouette. It's a slight silhouette. You can still keep most of your darker, moody elements, but we need to have some elements of a silhouette in order for the splash not to feel like it's just drowning in an unnecessary amount of light. So select inverse. And so I'm allowing some of that brightness to go up. She seems like an angelic character, obviously, because of the wings. But that doesn't mean I don't get to add that ambient outline. It's not an outline, it's a silhouette around the top edges of the image. And even if I added that haze, I can still add a dark frame. Like the rules are that we just need just enough silhouette. Look at that. I added the dark frame underneath. So we went dark, light, dark, light. Light, dark, light, dark. But we have just enough, so it's not doing this. I don't want it to drown in shadow because I'm trying to show my work. Even that is better because at least we have like an inverse silhouette now, but it's not ideal. It's not pretty to look at. We want that strobe effect where we have light, dark, revealing everything. We still have the frame around the illustration. That looks more like a league splash. That combined with fixing your foreshortening should really help you finish this illustration a lot better. Okay? And that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for attending the live stream on the new channel. I really appreciate all the support. Hopefully these videos go out to whoever needs them. And I appreciate you guys hopping in. To recap, on the announcements from earlier, Portrait Studio, which you just saw in action, and my masterclass are both on sale for this summer. They're on sale at 50% off. You can get them at istabrack.com, on Patreon, on Gumroad. You can join me on Patreon, or you can go to my store, and that'll take you to my my Gumroad, which is I'm sorry, I'm blanking. It creates like a seamless link experience online instead of having to type it out. But it is gumroad.com/istabrack, or istabrack.gumroad.com if you wanted to just go straight to the browser. And istabrack.com on the store will take you straight to my store. So you're not, fumbling for too long trying to figure it out. And the spelling of the website is just my name. And that's it for today. Thank you all for joining. If you want to submit your work for critique, you want to see your work on the channel critiqued, you can go to istabrack.com and go straight to the subreddit link right here. That'll take you to the subreddit. You can submit your work for critique. This is a squid in a cauldron. That's adorable. I love the colors. Someone's working on a 14-day challenge, which is cool. It's a portrait challenge. Or you can click on the Discord icon right here. That'll take you to the Discord community, where I selected both pieces to critique today. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.